Good evening and welcome back to another episode of It's a Football Thing. Not our regular, typical Premier League themed episode because we have an amazing guest. He doesn't need an introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. Former Celtic star, former Socceroo. He's played with Borough. He's played at Southampton. And I just found out he's trialled at Arsenal when he was young. Scott McDonald. Scott, welcome to the show. Absolute privilege to have you with us.
Good evening, guys. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to talk to you.
And RJ, my fellow co-host, always a pleasure to have you, my man. How are you?
Fantastic. And I'm already going to say this, Scott, that you are the better Scott that I know. So welcome aboard and can't wait to chat football with you, my friend.
Well, that's what 20 years of friendship gets you.
Yeah, I know. Even though I said Arsenal instead of Chelsea as well, he still likes me more, Scott. So there you go.
Yeah, exactly. Credit to you, mate.
It's a tough crowd, Scott. Look, we thought we might start with some real quick fire questions just to get the audience to know you a little bit better as a player, as a person. I might start off. You played in a lot of games at the highest level. What is your favorite game that you've played in and why?
Oh, look, I think it has to be obviously Celtic Rangers games, no matter which one it was. But I'd probably say particularly the one where I scored the winner at Ibrox. You know, it was 1-0 game and then you get the winning goal. It's memorable. But the whole build up to, you know, the week leading into that game is huge and very nerve wracking as a footballer. And even in training, it's just like, just get through the sessions and just get us to the game time. Every night, you're just thinking about it constantly. It's actually more a relief than anything else once the game's actually done with, you know, and hopefully you've got the result at the end of it, because if you haven't, you're hiding for another week in your house. So that's just the way it was. But no, those games are special. And look, the Champions League nights as well. I was fortunate enough to have a few special ones, that's for sure. And, you know, at Celtic Park particularly, the place just rocks. It comes alive when Champions League nights come along. And was lucky to play at some, you know, brilliant stadiums across Europe as well throughout that tournament.
Excellent. So you've played in obviously some very big ticket games, Scott, and you alluded on some very important goals. But out of interest, because it's not always the most important goals that are your favourite, I'm actually keen to hear from your perspective, what are one or two of your most favourite goals that come to mind?
Recently, you know, talking about it, look, it's hard to go back through all of them because it's been 20 plus years. Look, I think, you know, even growing up, I mean, the World Youth Cup in '99, you know, where it sort of all started really, for me playing for the Joeys, you know, scoring against USA in the semi-final of that game. Probably I'd scored previous to that in the tournament, but it allowed me to arrive and for people to take notice and then step on to the next stage. And thereafter that, I scored some great goals at Motherwell. It's too hard, guys, to actually pick, you know, a couple out of particular. Look, probably one I'd say, and you would say, oh, well, it isn't a big game, was probably my goal against Manchester United in the Champions League. We drew 1-1. And, you know, that goal, I think, in my perspective anyway, if someone else had scored it, I think it would have been lauded upon a lot more heavier than what it was. And obviously because we didn't win the game as well, but if we had won the game, probably it would have been even more special. But that was a huge one. And look, you've got the picture just to go with it, which is even better. Yeah. So we teed that up brilliantly.
Yeah, were they? I think they were European champions at the time, were they not? United when you
they were. Yes, they were. That's correct. Yeah, because the year before we played the then European champions in Milan, and then the following season we actually played Manchester United, who were then obviously champions as well. So. Yeah, it was. Yeah, their team at the time was just ridiculous. You know, Rooney, Ronaldo, Tevez, who you see in the background. Berbatov was part of that group as well. And Giggs, Scholes, you know, Ferdinand, Vidic, you know, Neville. Let's keep going. You know, Van der Sar. Yeah, I mean, it was just a phenomenal squad.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, like I said to you earlier on, we are predominantly a Premier League show. I'm an Arsenal man. RJ's a Chelsea man. Who's your prediction, just really quickly, to win the Premier League this coming season?
Well, it's funny you asked me. I was thinking about this today, and look, it's all up in the air at the moment. I've seen there was a big bid for, you know, Lukaku today, or There's rumours of that Chelsea are in for Lukaku once again to bring him back to Stamford Bridge. And I really think it's a tale of the strikers this year. Who's going to get that main number 9? Who's going to take them, to the next level? Is it going to be Harry Kane at Manchester City? What are Manchester United going to do? Because I still feel that they need a number 9, albeit they've got Sancho that they've brought in. They've brought Varane in, 2 excellent signings. And then Chelsea, the missing piece, of the puzzle. Tuchel obviously won the Champions League last year, but, they're looking for that out-and-out number 9. Timo Werner doesn't seem to be the answer for him. And he wants that big one. He can't get Haaland at the moment. So who's the next best thing? And they're looking upon, well, if Kane's going to go to City, then we need Lukaku at Stamford Bridge. So I think it's going to be a case of who gets what. And that's really going to probably give you the answer to the question you're looking for. But till then, I can't give it. A long way around. Sorry.
Well, I'll tell you what, if it doesn't
I'm involved.
Well, I tell you what, if it doesn't work out for Lukaku or Kane or Haaland, I'm pretty sure you're a free agent, Scott. So I might get on the phone with Roman and see if you're interested, mate. So,
yeah, perhaps on chat, man, we might get away with that one, maybe.
Well, look, we obviously love a lot of football here. This is why we do the show. That's a given. But some strange people like to say, well, what do we love to do outside of football? So what are some of your interests outside of football, just quickly?
You're asking a guy who's been involved in the game for 30 years almost plus. It's very, very difficult. Look, I think for me, actually, funny enough, I've just taken up golf in the last year. And people go, what? You never played golf? You're a footballer. Surely you play golf. I was like, no. And you know what? I lived in one of the best countries for golf, and people would just be absolutely loving it if they lived in Scotland with the courses that are there. But it never tickled my fancy. I just never got around to it. I always spent time with the family or, recovered on my day off accordingly. But obviously spending time with the family is, a big thing for me now. And even at the back end of last season, I moved down to Sydney on my own, down at Western Sydney while the family still stayed up here in Queensland. So to come back and spend some quality time with them at the moment, it's been great. And, moving on to the next thing. But, golf's probably one of the things, and keeping fit. I absolutely love keeping fit. It's something, a day doesn't go by where I have to get out, whether it's at the moment hitting the road, just come back from, running on the road before this guy. So it just clears the head well and gets me thinking right, and doing my UEFA Pro license. So I'm never going to get away from the football side of things at the moment. So, it's always on my mind. And even when I'm running, I'm thinking about, things within the game, what would I do? And, different shapes, styles. It's always there, guys. It's never going to go away, much to my wife's dismay. But it's here to stay. And, no matter what shape or form it's going to be, I'll definitely be involved in the game there or thereabouts.
Also, it's so good to hear, and you've had such an exciting career. I'm really I'm having a bit of a giggle on the inside that you mentioned golf, because RJ and I have a really good mate who went to high school with us, and he was on that trip when we came to watch you play in that derby. His name's Woz, and he's a massive golf fanatic. He's got a signed photo of yours up in his office at work. So if you ever need a golfing partner, I'm sure we can hook that up. He's not a bad player from what I hear. But I don't golf.
No, I need lessons, that's for sure. I was playing on Friday there, and I can say it now because no one got killed, thankfully. But I managed to hit one off the tee, and it landed on the middle of the freeway. And I don't know why there's freeways close to a tee anyway, but there was on this occasion. And I just seen the ball bounce 20 meters, off the freeway and back up, and I was like, oh my god! So there's still a lot of practice to be done.
Well, Scott, you've had an amazing career, and we do want to kind of get into it. I just wanted to share really quickly that when I reached out to Scott, I know he's doing some great things that we're going to give a plug later on, but I kind of shared a little bit of a story about how myself and 5 mates did a bit of a European soccer trip when we were 21. And one of the things we did was go, and we got tickets to Celtic Rangers, which was absolutely amazing, one of the best experiences of my life so far. And when we were in the gift shop, Scott, buying up all our Celtic merch, including this one, the lady at the counter said, if you guys stick around and can handle the Scottish cold, the players are due to come out and get on the bus. And again, I was with my mate who's a huge fan, and we thought, all right, you know what? Let's wait it out. Let's give it an hour. I think we waited maybe 2.5 hours.
Wow.
And then, look, it was worth it. Lo and behold, out comes Scotty McDonald and absolutely made our day. There's a photo of young Scott over there and a few mates. It was a cracking trip. And you were telling me we saw your last goal for Celtic because you scored the winner in that derby right at the death.
Yeah, that was my last ever game for Celtic. Actually, I actually tore my my hernia. I already was carrying a hernia at the time, but I'd fully torn it at that point, like in my abdomen muscle at the time as well. So I was leaving. I ended up leaving at the end of the transfer window that January, but didn't play another game for Celtic thereafter. So yeah, you did see my last ever game where I scored, against Rangers. So it was probably a nice way to go out, I suppose.
When you reflect on your time over there in Celtic, and I mean on your career as a whole, I'm assuming that time at Celtic holds a special place in your heart. What were some of the things that kind of stood out for you over there? And we've obviously seen the huge news and the appointment of Ange Postecoglu. To me, it's probably one of, if not the biggest managerial appointment ever for our country. If you could maybe tell us a couple of highlights from your time at Celtic and give your thoughts on how Ange is going to fare over there, in your opinion.
Oh, look, for me, I lived the dream. I supported Celtic, from a young child. All my family are from Glasgow. It's well documented. My father's side's all Celtic, and mum's, the other half, the other side of Glasgow, Rangers supporters. But I grew up as a Celtic fan. So for me, someone who watched Celtic growing up, to then, get the opportunity to play for them and wear the number 7 jersey as well, which is, legendary status at that football club, and some of the players that have worn it, before me, I couldn't ask for any more. And then obviously for the way it went for me. And look, I think, the special times is winning things, you go there to win trophies, and they're the memorable moments. And I was lucky enough to win a couple, and would have liked a couple more. And if I had stayed around, then that may have well been the case. But football's works in mysterious ways and fast tracks, some things that you don't think is ever going to happen. When I signed, I thought I was going to be there for the rest of my career, but things move quickly and your head gets turned in other directions. But it was a special time, and we went through such, different emotions throughout that period. We had, the late Tommy Burns, who was one of our coaches during the first season I was there at the club, and became very ill and passed away near the end of that season. And we found ourselves something like 8 points behind with 7 games to go in that season, and managed to turn it around and win the league on the last day of the season. Then the following season we lost it on the last day. So there was a lot of dramatics, and then all the Champions League highs and lows throughout that period as well. We actually played against Arsenal in a Champions League qualifier as well, which we got done.
Was that when Eduardo went down in the box?
That's the one, yeah. That's the one where he got the ban for thereafter, didn't he? I think he got like a 3-game ban for diving after that game. But look, I can't really put my finger on it. I think you could probably put it as in I was like a child in a sweet shop, walking through those doors the very first day. You just couldn't wipe the smile off my face, and it was just a pleasure every single day going in there. And I knew how lucky I was, and to have the family be able to live that dream with me as well was something special, as they were there at the very beginning as well when I started for Celtic.
It's so amazing for me just to hear you reflecting on that time. So we obviously know, like I said, Ange Postecoglu's got the appointment over there. Steven Gerrard has his Rangers team absolutely flying at the moment, playing some good football. This is going to be a really big season for Ange. I'm sure you understand that better than we do. How do you think he's going to fare? I'm sure you've had experience with Ange Postecoglu. How do you think he'll go over there, Scott? Because it can be quite unforgiving, can't it?
Well, it can, and the screw's a little bit turning already. There was a few media outlets after the game on the weekend starting to sort of question Ange's leadership, and how long are they really going to give Ange? Albeit that yes, they feel he's been hung out to dry a little bit in terms of the preparation and the build-up into the new season and not being able to recruit correctly. And I think they probably brought Ange in a little bit too late, if I'm honest. They waited and hung out for, obviously, Hughes from who was it? Sorry, from Bournemouth, the manager there, Eddie Hughes, Eddie Hughes. Richard Hughes is his number 2. Eddie Howe there, and when that didn't go through, then Ange was obviously on the list and managed to get the gig, and it's been wonderful for Australian football and to see the excitement from everyone over here, and just the news that it's created, not just from a football level, Australia-wide, in terms of how big the story's been. It's just unfortunate for him at the moment that he's sort of went in at a dark period for Celtic. And you would probably say and that's going off record at the moment, that this is the worst team in 25 years of Celtic history in terms of stats and performances as well. So he really has a big job on his hands, there's no question. And we're looking at the first 11, and you could probably say he needs, at least half a team, to really have a go and have a good crack at Rangers. He come in with no head of recruitment at the football club. A new CEO had just started and has been predominantly, his background's been in rugby itself. Not to say that that's any harm in terms of a higher level of the football club and the infrastructure, but he's coming into a brand new job as well. He's coming on the face of, doesn't know what he's coming into. And Ange has been left with the same coaching staff. He's not brought anyone of his own in thus far. So it's a big job to go and do on your own. And as much as Ange loves to, do things his way and probably will be controlling the whole situation, because you want to make sure if it's going to be done, it's going to be done his way. He's going to go out. If it's going to be, if he's going to get the sack, albeit every manager's always one day closer to that, and he'll think, well, if I'm going to get it wrong, I'm going to get it wrong my way. And we've seen that in terms of his press conferences thus far as well. Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how these press conferences go as the weeks go, because I think there's only so much you can have a nibble back at the press in Scotland before they'll have a nibble back at you. So you really need results to go your way to fend them off. So hopefully Ange can do that in the coming weeks and get some positive results on the board.
Here's to hoping he succeeds. In a sec, RJ is going to ask you a little bit about your time for the national team, but just wanted to point out a couple of comments from the live chat. Welcome, George. George has said, as a Man United fan, it'd be amazing to see Ange take the league title off Gerrard. Have to agree with you there, George. We'd love to see it. Tom, who runs the United Pubcast. Evening, lads. My first ever Champions League match at Old Trafford was Celtic United in 08. Scott was up front for Celtic, but Berbatov and Rooney stole the show that night. And this is a good little question. We might come back to this a bit later, but good friend of ours, Declare, said, are you looking to get into coaching in Australia with your pro license?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I came with all intention to do that when I came to the country. It was well documented on my end that I was coming also not just to play, but for future of within the game. I wanted to be part of it. Whether it was especially within the A-League and the professional environment, that's always what I've been a part of. And people knew I was doing or had ambitions to get on my pro license. I managed to get on that while I've been at Brisbane Roar, which has been fantastic with the Scottish FA. And look, there's no question. I'm looking to go in the, and coach. If my career has come to an end now, certainly that's the ambition to move in there. But I haven't, disclosed anything else, in terms of, media or playing as well. I'm not really at that point where I've made a decision on what's next at the moment.
Perfect. RJ, you all right, my man?
Well, yeah. Well, look, I've just been sitting in awe, and it's, for me, obviously, I get up, I live and breathe, talk football without having had a professional career, although you might see I've got a couple of not so sensational trophies behind me. They're no Scottish Premier League ones or Golden Boots, but they are okay. Look, for me, there's nothing like the highest honour of being able to represent your country, and you spoke fondly about the Joey's experience. And from my standpoint, I just wanted to know what it was like for you personally when you got the call up to say, Scott, you're going to be part of the Socceroo squad. Like, what was it like for you, to help us understand what it's like at home?
I was hugely proud and super excited. It was in 05, so it was before the 2006 World Cup. Unfortunately, Gus couldn't make that trip. It was actually Johan Nishkens who took the managerial role along with Graham Arnold away to Kuwait. Was my debut, actually. The jersey's just sitting behind us. Joe, how bad's that? I even got it wrong. It was Bahrain. How bad's that? But there it is there, guys.
Wow.
Away to Bahrain, and so it's still there. And that probably gives you the answer you're looking for in terms of how proud a moment it was. And I think you touched on the Joeys there, and even being a part of the under-20s and 2 campaigns, actually. They were under Ange Postecoglu. And they were all special moments growing through and being a proud Australian and coming back and playing for your national team, while you're overseas and doing that. Then I managed to captain the under-20s as well, which was a huge, huge time in my career as well, and a proud moment. So the next step was to obviously, play for the Socceroos. And at the time there was a bit of toing and froing with Scotland being around as well. Obviously I could qualify to play for them. And look, I've spoken openly about that thereafter, in more recent times about that decision that I made. But, when I look back, I never would have made any other decision than to play for Australia, because of how much I love playing for my country, but also what it gave me. This is where it all started for me. I came through all the different regionals, the state teams, the institutes of sports, and then making Joeys and 20s. So I came right through the ranks in Australian football, and for me it was giving something back as well, playing for my country.
Brilliant. And using our current sunglasses on, out of the Socceroos squad today, who are some players that give you some cause for optimism or excitement looking forward?
Oh, look, I think the Olyroos, I think there's some really good talent in there at the moment, looking upon them. And with that, I'm excited. But we have to keep kicking on. I'd like to see quite a few of our players. It's great to see Jean-Ro move across to Europe, and albeit in the second division of France, but it's a right start. He knows what he's going to there. He's been to France prior to now. His heritage is from there. So, the more players we can get going across to Europe, and look, Asia's great. There's some real quality leagues there. But I just feel if we can get more players playing in Europe and coming up the ranks again, it's only going to help our national team. But you've got to say that the A-League's done phenomenal in the last year, producing some young talents that we have. Tilio looks like a huge prospect for Australia. I did see Kolakovsky being linked with Macedonia today, and saying his allegiance is gonna lie there. That would be disappointing if Australia don't act upon that and try and get him in a green and gold jersey as well, because those natural talents, the likes of Tilio, Zarzanis and Kolakovskis, they're few and far between. So to have them at our disposal, would be great. And look, we look like we've got goal scorers at the moment as well. Hopefully Tags can get back to some form overseas, over in Japan as well. And, Jamie's firing them in as well. So hopefully that bodes well for the World Cup qualifiers coming up ahead.
Absolutely. And the Matildas, Scott, they've been kind of the footballing pride of Australia at the moment, representing us so well. They were really unlucky in their match last night. Tell you what, they got so close. What are your thoughts on how the Matildas are going and the way that our women's national team are really setting a standard, aren't they?
Well, they really are, and they have been for many a year now. It's been phenomenal what they've done for the country, and with 2023 around the corner, it was such a positive tournament for the Matildas itself. They had some shaky friendlies leading up to this campaign, and everyone was starting to question what the new manager was going to be like. Are they understanding what he wants? But it's all clicked, at the Olympics, and it's been fantastic. And football really is a sickener at times, isn't it? When you watch it and see how well the Matildas played last night, and that to have that goal chalked off as well, which looked pretty soft, in my
Pretty
opinion,
rough.
for Sam Kerr. Yeah, and then obviously Sweden go up the other end in the second half and get a cheap one on you, and it's just a cruel game at times, and we play for the bronze instead of the gold now. But no matter what, the girls have done the nation proud, and what's really been fantastic and what's different about the Olympics, albeit from a women's World Cup or a men's World Cup, is everyone around the world is watching this. In particular, all of Australia is. So from that and looking at the viewers, 2.5 million plus viewers watched the game against Great Britain, which was phenomenal figures. It's really putting football on the map in Australia, and that's what the Matildas continue to do for our football.
Speaking of, Scott, as well, I just wanted to bring it home a little bit from an A-League perspective. You did mention the importance of seeing our rising talented stars get some foreign experience or domestic league experience overseas. But from an A-League perspective, you mentioned how the standards been improving, and that's obviously from day zero through to the time you played for both the Wanderers and the Raw. But at the moment, what would you say the prospects are for the A-League in terms of trying to entice and keep these talented stars? Because there is a bit of a trade-off, isn't there, from a national team point of view, trying to improve the quality at that level, but equally from a medium to long-term perspective, trying to keep the domestic competition growing and growing. So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a balancing act. I think we're going to see an even stronger A-League this year. I think some of the players that have come back who had their experiences abroad, whether it be in Asia or a couple in Europe, are now coming back, and that's going to really strengthen some of the squads and the quality that we see on the football pitch as well. What's been really great in the last year, obviously, a lot of younger players have been getting the opportunity. One, because salary cap was slashed for last season. A lot of players tried to venture and go elsewhere and have a crack overseas, and a lot went to India, for instance, and there was a few others that went to other Far East regions. But all seem to be wanting to come back now as well, which is going to strengthen. But in the meantime, we've allowed some of our younger players to throw them to the wolves, so to speak, and they've stepped up, haven't they? And it's been very entertaining. And what I suppose has been great from the spectators' perspective is that the games have thrown up some entertaining ones. There's been plenty of goals, and I think that's probably to the naivety or the inexperience of the players that we've had, showcased in the last year, particularly, that it has made for a much more exciting brand of football for the A-League, because the last couple of years before that, there was a lot of murmurs and complaints in the terraces and people watching the games that they weren't just living up to the standards of prior in terms of their entertainment value. So it was great for the game to actually come back last season, and goals were aplenty, and there was some exciting performances all round. So hopefully we can see that again in the A-League season to come.
Absolutely, Scott. I just wanted to point out a couple more comments from the live chat. Thank you to the people who are in the live stream. Please make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the like button. It helps get this video out there. As our good friend Declared has said, sub to see more super guests just like Scott McDonald. They don't get any more super than Super Scott. Excellent name, excellent player, and soon to be, hopefully, excellent manager if you don't continue your playing career further. We'll definitely wait and see. I did have a question in here from Jared Hill. He said, "Hey, lads, great show. Would love to know what players in the A-League Scott reckons would be good signings for Ange at Celtic. Anyone stand out for you, Scott?"
That's a real tough call. Obviously, that's a club to my heart as well at the moment. We do need some quality fullbacks. And I sort of mentioned on Twitter, I know Kakache's out of the A-League now, but he was certainly one that really impressed me when I played against him. There's a couple of fullbacks within the A-League as well, and I was really I've lost his name at the moment, but from Melbourne City, who won obviously the medal in the final and had a great Olympics. Maybe you can help me out with his name, guys, from Melbourne City, the right back.
You've got me stumped too, Scott.
Oh God, my mind's gone blank. How bad's that for us on the show? But
maybe the live chat can help us out with that one.
Help me out, please. Help me out. But he's had a great. Obviously, I'm not talking about Galloway. I'm talking about the other one, I can't remember his name. My God, but I think he's destined to go overseas very, very soon, just with the performances that he had at the Olympics as well, particularly. Look, there's some real quality young talent out there at the moment. And I think technically we've got the talent there. It's just mentally at the moment, I'm not sure. In some of the talent that we have, they have to go over there and do the hard yards and stick it out. But I certainly think that, playing in the A-League and getting minutes under their belts and playing, senior football certainly is going to hold them in good stead for when the time comes, if they choose to then go out. Nathaniel Atkinson. Thank you, George. There we go.
Thank you, Declared, and thank you, George. I knew the live chat would help us. We have a knowledgeable live chat, Scott.
Yeah, exactly. More knowledgeable than me. How bad's that? I didn't know his name. Sorry, Nathaniel. But he's been fantastic, honestly, guys. And I think the way he's performed over the last 6 months, he's really a standout for me. And I'd take him at Celtic now. Just they're screaming out for fullbacks at the moment, particularly for Ange.
Absolutely. Look, moving away kind of from the international team experience and the time at Celtic, and your career has been such an exciting one to follow because you have been able and been privileged to play in a lot of countries. You've had experience in England and you played for Borough. You had a stint at Southampton, and you trialled for Arsenal. You were telling me before we started the show. Can you maybe reflect on any experiences that stand out for you over in England?
Oh, look, the trial periods, obviously, as a 15-year-old, were certainly an eye-opener. Going over there at such a young age. Myself and Mark Burns actually went over at the same time to Arsenal. Liam Brady was the head of youth at the time. The legend Don Howe was one of the overseers of the youth as well. And there was, some amazing talent. David Bentley, Jermaine Pennant, to name a couple, were involved in that youth system at the time. And it really was cutthroat to go there and have a trial. And in the end, I think I was just the way that they do their sort of dates for their years was sort of end of August was a cutoff date, and I was the 21st of August. And they said if I had been a 1st of September, then I would have actually been probably signed, but I fell into the older category. So it's just crazy how those small details, don't work out for you. But Southampton was an amazing place for me, and I spent 3.5-4 great years there. I managed to make my Premier League debut as an 18-year-old, and had some fantastic managers. Worked under Glenn Hoddle, the great Glenn Hoddle, which was fantastic, and Gordon Strachan was my manager then as well, and played with Matt Letizia, James Beattie. There was so many, but these guys that were fantastic footballers, and even I probably have to say someone like Jason Dodd, who a lot of people would probably go, who Jason Dodd? But Doddsy played over 250 games for Southampton and was a stalwart captain at the club. But it was players like that you learned a lot of because of the graft and the grit and just their professionalism day to day and how good they had become. Underrated players. Their touch and their knowledge in the game and how they led from the front and in and around the changing room, and just small minor detail things that they go and take them for granted for the spectator because they don't see it day to day. So they were great times growing up, and then obviously I had my time at Middlesbrough and Millwall thereafter, and there was some highs and lows throughout that period. That's for sure.
Now, obviously, being a front man in your time playing, and this might be over in Scotland as well, who's the best striker that you've played either with or that you've played against?
Wow, I mean, played against is kind of easy in terms of, I never actually really say who the best striker I played. I always like to say who the best defender was because that's who I would play up against rather than watch the guy who's 50 yards up the pitch, But you could bring them off. You go Messi, Ronaldo. I was fortunate enough to play against all of them, Berbatov, Rooney. But in terms of defenders, there was a little guy called Gabrielle Molito that played against at Barcelona. And he must have been about 5'10", not the biggest or the most physical centre-back you've ever seen, but he was so intelligent, so clever. And for me, a guy like to back into people and wriggle, he just wouldn't allow me to do it. If he was everywhere. It was just like the labyrinth for me. I couldn't get anything right on the night. And I learned a hell of a lot from that, watching back and looking back. And the amount I grew through the 2.5-year period at Celtic, because prior to that, playing in domestic leagues, it wasn't, of that level. So to go to the next levels and play that in international football, I was learning all the time, and I was becoming such more a complete player and much more experienced. And I could feel that as I was coming through the years, that I was actually getting better as a player technically, but also, intelligently as well.
Yeah.
Go on, Arch.
No, I was just thinking on that theme because, I had some questions around your general career and, how you've inspired many. And I just thought to myself, at what point did you say to yourself, hey, I'm really good at this. I love my football, and it's not always easy, particularly for Australians, to make a footprint in the biggest leagues around the world, in the biggest competitions like the Champions League. So at what point were you convinced that you're going to go hell for leather for this and become a professional footballer of the highest order?
I was actually 14 years of age. With my local club, Dufton Soccer Club in Melbourne, we did a lot of fundraising as a team. We were very successful in the old Super Leagues down in Melbourne. Had a really good team, or we thought we had a really good team. We had recruited some other players from other Super League teams to come across to represent us and play in a couple of tournaments in Scotland. One called the Aberdeen International Football Festival, the other one the Ayrshire Cup. And we done fantastic. The parents done amazing and got us there. And we played against some unbelievable sides at 14. Spartak Moscow. There was a Ghanaian team. There was some top English teams there. And it was a real eye-opener. I talked about being there on the under-17s and going through ranks. But this was my first ever taste of how good some of these players really were. And thankfully, though, I was a year younger than everyone else, and I still managed to come out. And I mean, we were getting beaten well by these teams, but I was still scoring goals in the games, albeit. And from that, my confidence just grew because I didn't look at it from a team perspective. I looked at it from an individual perspective. And before I had gone to that tournament, I was probably on the peripheral of not knowing if I was actually going to make it to the next level. And the next level was obviously playing for my state team, Victoria. But when I came back, the swagger, just the chest was puffed out, the shoulders, the old Conor McGregor was happening at 14 years of age. I come back a bigger and better player. And from that, about 3-4 months later, I ended up becoming a centre forward because I never played centre forward till I was 15 years of age. And that flipped on its head with my coach who I had, who was fantastic, a South African Chilean guy. And then from there, I just never looked back. My mentality was so strong, so stubborn, probably in a lot of good ways, but in a lot of bad ways. It probably harmed me throughout my career in different ways. But I don't think without that mentality or that little bit of bite to me that I would have got as far as I did within my career.
Absolutely. It's nice to hear you reflect on it. And you know what? I think one thing that a lot of footballers do say is that you need that mentality. And to hear you acknowledge that maybe it did cause some difficulty, I would probably argue, Scott, that it's been far more positives than negatives because of that perseverance and doggedness.
Some of the coaches would not say that.
We won't push you too much on that unless you feel like sharing. You're more than welcome.
No, that's for another time.
We'll save that one. I know RJ in a moment's going to ask you just about your thoughts on the upcoming Premier League season, but did just want to kind of throw a quick question at you from the live chat because it's an interesting one. Good friend of mine, Elia, he's a massive memorabilia collector, and he said he has Jimmy Jinky Johnston's match-worn kit from the all-conquering Celtic 67 season. Elia has an amazing collection. He'll be sharing it with us on a future episode. But what's some of the, maybe one or two of your favourite pieces of memorabilia that you have, Scott?
Obviously, you have your trophies and medals. I've got Kaká's jersey, who was the World Player of the Year when we played against Milan, when we beat them 1-0. I got Seedorf's in the return game. That one, there's some really great jerseys I've got. Probably that's the most I've got. I always made, a beeline to try and collect as many as I could, and more actually my teammates as well that I played with, and get them to sign them. That was special as well, because these are the guys you spent the most time with. So the likes of the Nakamuras, the Aidan McGeedy's, them types of players. But yeah, I've got an unbelievable stash. I just need to actually lay down some roots in one place, because I've moved that many times, and I'll be able to actually get a bit more of these guys framed up and then put on the wall for everyone to see at some point. But yeah, there's quite a few in a bag upstairs at the moment, waiting to get framed.
And if you ever wanted to share them with us on It's a Football Thing, mate, we would love to have you back. We're going to be doing some shows coming up featuring some football collectibles, because there are guys like Elia who have just some amazing pieces. I won't give any spoilers away, because I know he'll want to share those on an episode. But we did have another question. This one came from Twitter, didn't it, RJ? Do you want to put that one?
Yeah, sure. So it comes from a good friend of mine, and he was adamant. He said, we need to get this to Scott. And I'll read you out the comment. He said, great little player, Scotty. So his name's David Branchy. Great little player, Scotty. A couple of the most memorable goals for your time in Scotland for me were your volley at Ibrox and the goal on an electrifying night against AC Milan in Celtic Park. His question, how did you feel when you made the helicopter change direction though, mate?
Do you know what? I can't go without a podcast without actually having to answer this question. No, it's all right. It's not your fault. It's actually fine. I'm not upset by it. I just wish I had $1 for every time someone asked me. But it's I mean, this period and these goals that he's referring to changed my life and changed my career dramatically from there on in, because I don't know if I don't score those goals that I get the opportunity to play at Celtic. As crazy as that sounds, scoring those 2 goals against them, but it set me on a different platform, and people started to really pay attention to what I was doing and what I was about thereafter that. At the time when I scored the goals, I celebrated straight after. I wish the camera had stayed on me, because I tell you what, I mean, literally after the second one goes in, I take a moment to myself walking back to the centre circle and go, I'm dead. I'm literally dead. Everyone's going to kill me, from my grandfather to my future father-in-law, who I got tickets for in the Celtic end. He was in the Celtic end with his brothers. And I had to catch a flight back down to England with him after the game. He had to hide me in the BA lounge so no one could see me, because there was obviously fans everywhere in the airport. And he just went, sit there, and he walked away. He never talked to me. He never even talked to me on the aeroplane. He just didn't talk to me for days. He just couldn't believe it. He was stunned. And I think that was just the whole thing. I thought my windows were going to get caved in my house and the lot, because it's full on. It's serious over there, as you guys well know. But it was, I mean, it was crazy. I remember being so upset in the changing room after it. And Phil O'Donnell, who was part of our team and who's not with us at the time, but was a Celtic player and did very well at Celtic as well prior to my time, and it was at Motherwell. It sort of was looking after me and said, get a grip, you're all right, you don't play for them, you play for us, you're doing your job, and stuff them basically, and it was kind of like, well, all right, okay, but yeah, it was just a weird feeling after it. But at the time, it felt amazing, because when you go out and play against Celtic or Rangers, it was your chance to shine. It was your chance to go and show people, because you knew they were going to be all over the television and all over the world, that if you were to do well in these games, then people are going to take notice. And sure enough, that was certainly the platform to go and do it.
Incredible. And I think we got more than what we bargained for with that response. So just pivoting towards the Premier League, like Scott mentioned, we have a little bit of, friendly, light-hearted, clean banter between Scott and our other co-host, Rob, the Man United Red Devil, and myself as the Chelsea correspondent. And you gave your thoughts before regarding, it's really hard to pick, if you will, who's going to win the league. But I suppose what I'm keen to hear your thoughts on as to, with the Premier League, why do you think that it attracts as much interest and appeal as it does now relative to some other top European leagues? And do you see that the English teams of today will continue to be dominating in terms of becoming like the champions of Europe, like Chelsea and the cities of the world?
Look, I think they will, and I think that's particularly down to the financial powerhouses that they are as well, and the TV revenues that continue to stream in, and being able to bring in the best managers that allows them to attract the best players in the world. And we see what's going on in Spain at the moment, for instance. Look at Inter Milan. These teams are rumored to be in absolute financial strife at the moment. So that's only going to strengthen the Premier League even more when they see that they'll be rubbing their hands together and looking at the list of players that are on these squads and looking to try and nick a couple, i.e. Lukaku for Chelsea at the moment. So I think from that standpoint, I think the Premier League is going to go from strength to strength. Whether or not they win the Champions League again, who knows? But they'll be very, very close to it. And I think it's going to be a very tight race this year. I still think Manchester City are going to be the team to beat. They're just, they were phenomenal. The 6-7 months of the back end of the season, they obviously had a shaky start, but no one else could keep up with them in the end. But I think really Chelsea are going to run them really tight. I'm a Man United fan. I'm still skeptical at the moment with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as the manager and in his reign in time. Can he really deliver? Is he the man to put Manchester United back on that pedestal? Can he win trophies? He's still yet to win one. So time will tell on that. Again, they've allowed him to spend big bucks. But I just still feel that they're that one striker away. And as a Man United fan, I would love to see Harry Kane at Manchester United. I've said it, on Twitter before, but I just really think he suits Manchester United more than he's going to suit Manchester City. Just in my eyes, I think he can go there and have the run of the place and be that main number 9. At Man City, there's so many different variables and so much quality there. Yes, he will get chances and he will score goals, but will he be that main man? And maybe that might not suit Harry as much.
Scotty, are Arsenal getting back in the top 4 this season?
Unfortunately not, Scott. I think they're still a hell of a way away from building to that period. And there's still question marks on Mikel Arteta and in what he's trying to build there. If you look at last season's reign and the disappointment even within the Europa League, there's no European football this year, so there is a full focus. There is European football, Scott? You got it?
No, we missed out.
No, didn't think so. Sorry, I just had to ask you that just to rub it in further.
Good question.
Good question. But with that, yes, I see the message down there. Comment Greenwood, absolutely. He's going to be a superstar. But I still just think they need that one with the experience, that out-and-out number 9 now, whether it was going to be a Haaland or a Kane. But I think Greenwood, if he can stay fit, can score goals. But, yeah, Arsenal, unfortunately, I think it's going to be looking for, the top 6 rather than the top 4 again, Scott, this season.
Speaking of we spoke about the top end of town, but, as a Premier League neutral, I've been really impressed with how the big 6 is starting to really open up. And some of these teams like the Leicesters of the world, Aston Villa's been making waves. Some of these other clubs have really started to bridge the gap. And I'm not going to make bold claims, pun intended, that they're going to go and chase the Premier League title. But it's been really interesting that no result is a given for the most part. And I can safely say that even teams like Crystal Palace have been making some waves in the transfer market. And it's just really good to see that even like your Evertons of the world, that no result, like I said, is a given. And I think that actually adds part of the answer to the question I asked about why it's so exciting, given it's almost relatively level playing field. So, it's going to be a fascinating season. Just on a managerial point of view, you touched on poor Ole at the wheel, but are there any managers in the Premier League, given that you have aspirations to hit the managerial sort of role, that you sort of take a bit of inspiration from or follow closely, tactically?
Yeah, look, Brendan Rodgers, most definitely, because I spent a lot of time, covering a lot of Celtics games at the time. I had sort of retired I had a sabbatical, you probably could say, before I came to the A-League. And through that time, obviously, Brendan Rodgers' era at Celtic Football Club and the things that he'd done at the club and the Invincibles, going a full season without losing a game and how he took Celtic to the next level, and then what he's done at Leicester. And I was lucky enough to sit down with him, and he gave me his time. He's such a gentleman, and you see that within his interviews. But we were staying at the same hotel in Dubai in a school holiday period, and he knew I had that coaching aspirations, and sat down with me for about 2 hours. Didn't need to. He was on his holiday, and just talked football with me. And from that as well, when you build that rapport, or you have that experience, you can't help but follow their path and what they're doing and what Brendan's doing. He's a phenomenal manager, and I won't be surprised if someone even bigger comes along at some point, and nicks him. If he continues to do what he's doing at Leicester, which I think he will this year. They've recruited very well and kept all those key players, which is, again, what you talked about, that because of the financial powerhouse that the Premier League is now, they don't need to sell their players to the bigger clubs. But even a club foreign to Brendan Rodgers could happen. He's fully bilingual in Spanish particularly, and maybe that might tickle his fancy at some point as well. But he's definitely the one that I look to a lot, and look for comparisons, because you've had that human contact with the guy, and I've seen firsthand what he did at Celtic.
Absolutely, Scott. Great to hear those reflections of yours. We are going to wrap this up in a couple of moments, but I know there was something that you've been involved with that we just wanted to give a little bit of a plug. There's a little bit of Arsenal banter in the live chat as well, but I think this is far more important. Do you just want to talk a little bit about what Soccer Genius are doing with their lockdown challenge?
Yeah, so a friend of mine who runs Soccer Genius Australia, it's a great program that goes around Australia and to schools and whatnot. It's sort of like works on shooting accuracy, game action running, and technical dribbling. And there's all different types of drills that you can do, but usually it's with the specialty pieces that they carry along with them with Soccer Genius. But we kind of came up with a way for young kids especially, and that can do it with anything. All you need is a football, and whether it's markers or some objects to go and lay down to use as cones, that's going to do. And you'll see that all in the tutorial once the video comes out on Thursday at 4 p.m. So that's dropping, and we've set up a challenge as well, the lockdown challenge, which will be obviously, can you beat me? So can you beat my times? That's going to be the key to it. And we want all the young players, or they can be old, doesn't matter, to send their videos in, DM either at Soccer Genius on Twitter or Instagram, or even SMA Planet Soccer as well on those platforms as well. And please tag it and add it on to other people, and just keep passing it on, and let's see if we can get as many kids possibly doing it and having fun. And that's what it's all about, having fun, and not just testing yourself against me, but test yourself against your mate, test yourself against your dad. That's what these are for, and especially in these challenging times.
Yeah, Scott, I was going to mention that this is an incredible initiative, and I have the privilege, not sure the kids do, of managing my son's under-6 team. So it might be a bit aspirational for them, but I think I might have a go myself for a bit of fun. Yeah, no, it's a great stuff. But just keeping on the Scotland theme from before that you mentioned, given Scott and I are Arsenal-Chelsea fans, just very quickly, who has the higher ceiling, Kieran Tierney or the Scottish Iniesta, Billy Gilmour?
Oh, you know what? That's a tough one. It depends in terms of, for Billy Gilmour, where his pathway is going to be. At this moment in time, I see Kieran Tierney, going to different levels and will be Arsenal captain in my eyes. I think he will. I think he's already on that pathway, and the fans just absolutely adore him and love him already. But Billy Gilmour's a super talent and has the world at his feet. So if he can have a great season at Norwich, that could be just a great platform for him to try and get back into that Chelsea side. But it's going to be super difficult, isn't it? With the squad that they have and being Champions League winners and what they do this year, time will tell. We'll wait and see. But certainly Tierney's the front runner at the moment.
Thanks for sharing. So look, for us personally, I know I speak on behalf of RJ as well. Been an absolute pleasure and privilege to have you on. To everyone watching, if you're watching the replay, which I know a lot will, because this isn't the most friendly time over in Scotland and England, share that Soccer Geniuses post as well. Get involved. If you're in Sydney, we're all in lockdown. Get the kids active. As a teacher myself, I know how important it is for kids to be physically moving and getting involved. Scott, it's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege. We appreciate your time, mate, and wish you all the best for the future of your career, whether that's playing or managing. I know we'll certainly be seeing a lot more of Scott McDonald.
Thanks very much, guys, and thanks for the chat. It's been very enjoyable.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you to everyone in the live chat. Please make sure you like, subscribe, share this video out, because we can't bring in high-quality guests like this without your support. Thank you. Have a great